I'm Jake Lipp, a part of Shepherd Student News, here with Zach Sweet and Jonas Ader, and we are going to be talking about the top 5 fantasy football players and talking about sleepers that we might have this year for the upcoming NFL season. So starting off in the quarterback position, Jonah, who do you think what's your top 5?
Um, my top five starts off with the best in the business, Tom Brady. He seems to just be improving with age, which is insane. He's gonna take his team to another Super Bowl, and he's gonna have another amazing season. Number two, I have Russell Wilson, and I think that uh, he'll do similarly to how he performed last year, which was really well, racking up about 25 points on average per game, I'd say. In my PPR league, of course. And number three, I have Carson Wentz, kind of a surprise from last year, who didn't really have an amazing first year, but really topped that last year and really got his team a Super Bowl. Number four, Aaron Rodgers. He was injured through most of last year, but he's still one of the uh, OGs of fantasy football, and I think he can really do some damage. And number five, another surprise from last year, the first overall pick in the previous draft, Jared Goff. He really did well last year, and I think he actually went under the radar for a lot of people, and I think he can also put up a lot of damage.
What are your changes about his lineup? What would you switch around in yours?
Well, I'd put Rodgers at number one. He's one of the most. He's been consistently dominant for the Green Bay Packers, and even though giving up his favorite target in Jordy Nelson, he does gain a red zone receiver and tight end in Jimmy Graham, and Jimmy Graham will catch all these passes down in the red zone for Green Bay, score a lot of touchdowns, and that's more points for Rodgers throwing them. And then my number two is Brady. Brady has been so consistent, keeps getting better and better, more points, and with such a high-powered offense, you figure he throws 2 touchdowns a game. My number three quarterback's Russell Wilson. His ability to get outside the pocket and scramble with the ball, he can rush for some touchdowns, but he also has big targets, and Paul Richardson will step up for them this year and catch a lot of passes for them. My number four is Carson Wentz. Wentz got hurt late last year, but he proved to be an MVP candidate and so dominant at his position last year. My number five is Drew Brees. Drew Brees thrown for most yards in the current NFL, and he's just throws so many touchdown passes every year. He's a solid player.
So now on to running backs. I'm just going to start this off with my one, and then that's all I'll say. I'm going with Leonard Fournette. He started off really hot last year, putting up a lot of points and was very consistent throughout the season, and I think he could do that again for the Jaguars. Jonah?
I don't have Leonard Fournette in my top five. I think that he started off the season really well, but he's kind of a risky pick to take. My number one is Le'Veon Bell, who absolutely demolished last year. I don't think anyone was, besides Alvin Kamara, was even close to the stats that he put up. Number two, LaShawn McCoy, someone who didn't perform probably as a top five running back, but I think that he's really going to step it up this year, and he did do very solid for the Bills. Number three, we already mentioned him, Alvin Kamara. An amazing rookie. He put up so many fantasy points. Legit got me 40 points every single game. And he did that sharing the backfield with Ingram, which I think is really impressive. And I think that he'll take that lead role this year, and Ingram will be a little bit more out of the picture. Number four, Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley can really put up some points for your fantasy team, and he did a very good job last year. And number five, even though he was suspended for the first 4 games of the season last year, Ezekiel Elliott is gonna come in this year strong, ready. He got something to prove now that he can play all 16 games. If he can stay healthy, I think he can be a top running back candidate.
I agree with you on the Kamara statement, but I do think that Kamara is going to split carries with Ingram. Ingram had a dominant year last year, and I definitely wouldn't say Kamara put up 40 points every week. But my running backs, I'd have Gurley at number one. Gurley stud last year. got so many points. I know he busted his first year, but I think he can come back with stuff he had last year. Le'Veon Bell has been so consistent. Don't see many running backs like this that can average that many catches every week as he can. And then Zeke, I do have at number 3. He had all this controversy last year with his suspension and his appeals, but I do think that Zeke will bounce back and have a good year this year. I have Kamara at number 4. Kamara can catch balls out of the backfield, yes, but I've already talked about Kamara. And my number 5 is David Johnson. David Johnson coming off injury. I really forgot about him last year, but I think he's going to bounce back with a good year this year.
So wide receiver, there's a lot of depth. I think that Antonio Brown is my number 1, and let's see how the other guys play out.
Yeah, you're insane if you don't have Antonio Brown at your number 1 wide receiver. He's probably the undisputed number 1 wide receiver. 2, gotta go with Odell. He's gonna, even though he got injured last year, he's gonna put up a good season. Number 3, Julio Jones. I think that he's going to have a really amazing season for the Falcons, and he can just destroy. And my 4 and 5 are kind of surprises from last year that did really well. Tyreek Hill. People thought he was going to be average last year, but he really did well and put up a lot of points. And number 5 is someone I picked last overall in my draft, Adam Thielen, who just absolutely demolished. And he did have a little bit of a slow end to the season last year, but I think he's going to really do well this year.
So is yours looking similar, Sweet?
Yeah, I have Brown number 1, Julio number 2, Odell number 3, and Adam Thielen number 4. And then I have DeAndre Hopkins at number 5, who can catch a lot of balls. I do want to talk about my tight ends real fast. I have Jimmy Graham, Rob Gronkowski, and Travis Kelce. They can all give you the same amount of production. Behind that, I don't think you should take another tight end until at least the 7th round. There's nobody else that compares up with them 3. And I think those 3 are definitely, by far, clearly the best 3 there.
Going with the top 3 tight ends, I think you're forgetting that Travis Kelce is, I think, going to be way more of a spot at number 1 than Jimmy Graham. Then Zach Ertz at my number 2 spot. He performed very well in the Super Bowl and is a very well-rounded tight end. And then Gronk at 3 because he's just injury-prone and gets injured almost every season.
Yes, I believe Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski, and Zach Ertz are the only 3 tight ends you should take early. Any other tight end should be probably taken in the later rounds because those are the 3 main guys at that position.
So then the last thing we're going to cover is our sleepers. Jonah, what is your 1 sleeper?
My one sleeper is Lamar Jackson. I think that he can be a big impact at quarterback. If he gets an opportunity this season to start over Joe Flacco, I think he can do a lot of damage.
And what is your 1 sleeper?
My number 1 sleeper is Jared Goff. Most fantasy points as a quarterback last year, and I think he's going to have a really good year with Kelvin Benjamin.
So that is all the time we have. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jake Lipp, signing off.